All right, so I think you had reached out a while back
Yeah.
because you're already knowing that you wanted to do kind of more advanced off-leash stuff. Is
Yeah,
that
well,
correct?
yeah, and, like
Sit.
we really want
Yes.
like heel and recall
Okay.
to be strong,
Okay.
and then some other things like helping her with like jumping on people,
Okay.
like learn how to do that,
Sure.
and maybe like some other basic like obedience.
Okay. Does she know
Um,
anything now that you've done?
I mean, we've done like some like puppy socials and like a few things. We do like this puppy kickstart at another place right
Okay.
now where she like socializes
Sure.
and like she knows like sit. And if we have a treat in our hand, she'll do it.
She'll do it without a treat. Her sit is strong. She knows down, up, and off. Sometimes.
Leave it
Leave it.
sometimes.
Okay.
We've-
Have you
So
had a healer before?
we have our other healer is older. We adopted her when she was like 4 or 5 though,
Okay.
so much calmer.
Okay. How does that dog know?
About
She's
10.
like 10.
10? Okay.
And the sweetest thing. She like comes and
She has
everything.
perfect recall and
Yeah.
never leaves your side.
Okay.
So we kind of want a similar situation.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Feel
Well, you're
welcome
starting a
together.
lot younger here, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So in the beginning, obviously it's pupping right now. Um, there's three, how do you say, growing moments from a puppy. So 6 months, a year, and 2 years is when we start to see like personality shifts a lot of times.
Okay.
So like, I had a client a long time ago. They had a German Shepherd puppy, and quietest puppy ever. Like didn't bark at anything. And I was like, just wait till the puppy turns 6 months, because I was doing puppy training at the time.
Yeah.
And at 6 months, like clockwork, dogs started barking at everything. And they're like, how'd you know? I'm like, because it's a German Shepherd. Like, German Shepherds are kind of known for barking at stuff.
Yeah.
But it was because it was a puppy. Once it hit 6 months, started barking. Once she hit a year, she started becoming territorial. Not like negatively, like not like becoming aggressive, but started like, guests would come over, kind of having a barking fit and stuff like that. So I had to come back to help address those issues. And at 2 years old, we get an adult dog.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, we don't see things now. Doesn't mean that we won't see them in the future.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, it's just genetics. What puppies, it can also be just nature versus nurture. So like this is fine for now, like the harness stuff. The harnesses can, over the course of time, create reactivity. Are you guys familiar with reactivity at all?
Yeah, absolutely.
With
Yeah.
barking on the leash, right?
Yeah,
So the
react.
reason why that happens with puppies is, from what I can see so far, she seems completely social, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, she loves people and other dogs so far.
Yep. So what happens is you're walking with her. She sees a dog. She starts jumping because she wants to say hi. You pull back because you're trying to prevent a negative interaction.
Yeah, and that right there reacts her
Correct.
to
It
make her
creates,
feel
negative
defensive.
tension. Exactly.
Yeah, I've read all about that.
Yeah. So if you haven't seen it now, good. If you're starting right when she turns 6 months and stuff, you'd be going to a regular collar and a leash at that point, so then that's not a problem anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just something over the course of time that I get puppies that are completely social, and then the owner puts them on a harness not knowing this thing, and like, this is like a year, 2 years later.
Yeah.
Where this has constantly been happening, and now the dog doesn't like other dogs anymore. So if you're catching it early, it's usually not a big deal.
Yeah, definitely help with that would be,
Yeah,
her
that's not a problem.
advice and stuff,
So I know you said heal and recall for sure, and then possibly like the other obedience stuff. But I think when I read over your form, you're like interested in the 6 class program. Was that
Yeah,
correct?
that works from that, or 6 or 9, and then possibly, I don't know if you guys still do the board and train.
We do board and train.
Maybe a combination of both. I don't know what you think or whatever.
So there's pros and cons to both.
Yeah.
With a board and train, it gets done much more quickly. Like in 1
Viggo.
week, I get a lot more done than a client would get done like in 3
Viggo.
to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Come.
And a good way to think of it is like 1 week of our time is like 3 weeks of your time.
Mm-hmm.
But even with that being said, I still teach more obedience because I'm a dog trainer. I've been doing this for 15 years.
Sure.
As opposed to teaching you to teach your dog. Right?
Yeah.
The pro of an in-person program is that you learn so much more, right? Because you show up with your dog. I don't touch the dog anymore. Very rarely do I ever have to touch the dog. I coach you through everything real time. So if she was struggling with something, like I would help you through it, right? But
Yeah.
it would be you doing the work, so you kind of learn more in that regard. The con is it just takes longer because obviously I'm teaching you to teach your dog.
Yeah.
But the benefit of learning everything yourself is I think priceless. Not to be cliche or whatever.
Okay.
No, for sure. And
But for your dog, you would be able to do either or. The board and train already comes with a follow-up lesson, right? And the longer the board and train, the more lessons you get. So it already is kind of like a hybrid in that sense, you know? So like whenever a client goes, oh, I want to do a 1 week board and train and a 6 week in person, I'm like, just do a 2 week board and train then. You know, like you're going to get so much more out of it. It'll be cheaper too, because the 1 week is going to cover everything already. As it is, you know? So it's usually, either or. You want to do a board and train or you want to do it in person.
Okay.
The only time I would suggest in person is if you did a 2 week board and train, right? We got all the basic foundation obedience stuff done, and then you came back and you're like, I want to teach new extra stuff. Then an in person makes sense because like, okay, now I'm going off of something that wasn't covered during the board and train. That makes sense.
Yeah. That does make sense.
So for puppies, we generally start them at 6 months, right, on the remote collar. Which you're already aware of. For puppies, I usually recommend if you're going to do like a board and train type program, is 3 weeks, because the first week is prong collar to get them ready for the e-collar, and then the next 2 weeks are e-collar. If you do a board and train type option, okay. If you're going to do like an in-person, then you'd be like at a 9 or 12 week, okay.
Okay, because she's a little harder to learn because she's a puppy.
So for adult dogs, they've had enough stress that they can tolerate and recover from it fairly easily. Whereas for puppies, they're so young, they haven't had a lot of experience with stress, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So when we do the prong collar, which is the spiky looking one, you guys seen those before? Do you know why they look that way?
Because they like dig into her skin? I don't know.
It's meant to mimic a dog bite.
Oh, okay.
That's why it looks like, you know, you look at it and it looks like spikes, right?
Yeah.
But when you understand the psychology behind it, it's meant to mimic a dog bite. So, way back when I first started training, I was completely anti-e-collar, anti-prong collar. I thought it was, torture or whatever. But then I learned over time, like, oh no, these tools, they're designed for a reason. And in the case of prong collar, which looks mean and menacing, I'm like, no, it's actually meant to mimic a dog bite because dogs bite each other. You know, this here is a dog bite. 10 stitches. This is a dog that didn't want to go in the kennel.
Oh, wow.
This dog was not aggressive. It was a great Dane. I was just trying to load him in the kennel, and he had never been loaded in the kennel before, and he freaked out, and his only way to stop me, his only way of self-defense was to bite me. Yeah. So here I am. You know, this was November of 2019. Never bit anybody before, never bit anybody after. Okay, it's just kind of like one of those things.
Just freaked out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But he used what he had available, which is his teeth, because that's how dogs communicate. So if you take, your dog to a dog park, and let's say she's being overly social with one dog, and that dog decides, I'm done with you, and she continues to pursue, ignoring the social cues, that dog might nip or bite her to say, like, leave me alone. That dog's not aggressive. The dog's just saying, leave me alone, right? Via dog language. So, so when we do board and trains, I usually recommend that if we're doing a puppy that's younger. For you, if you're doing a 9 or 12, the first couple weeks most likely we'll do prong collar, and then we switch to remote collar to finish off the rest of the program.
Okay.
If you're kind of wanting to do it the right way.
Yeah.
Okay. What we do with the prong collars as well is we pair in food. For adult dogs, I don't use food a whole lot. Like 98% of the time, my adult dogs train without food. Okay. The only time I use food is if I have a dog that is very sensitive to the collar. Maybe they're very, like shutdowny. Like they don't take to the pressure well. That we use the food to incentivize them and kind of balance out the training. Otherwise, most dogs, we just do the training and it's good to go. Whereas for puppies, we use the food to balance it out. So then we have the positive of the food, but then you have the negative of the prong or remote collar. So if she's like, okay, if you say sit and if I decide not to sit, there's a negative consequence. But if you say sit and I do sit, there's a positive consequence. Right now with puppies, if it's just positive only, which is fine for under 6 months, you have nothing that says don't do that, right? So like when you say off, right? She can jump off and you could reward her if you'd like, but if she jumps back, there is no consequence, negative consequence for that decision, and that's where the dog just keeps jumping.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Okay. Question on any of that stuff?
How long do they retain the training? Do we have to keep it up, obviously, and learn how to deal with the commands, right? That's what the videos you would give us would be for.
So
That's what I'm saying on the board and train. Obviously, like the one-on-one training is kind of like up to us.
Yes, and you get follow-up. So I record the training lessons and then I send them to you, so you always have it as a reference. You know,
Okay.
like I had a client, I trained her dog back in like 21, 22, and then they became lazy on the training.
Yeah.
And then she emailed me like, "Do you have those videos still?" I said, "Sure." I sent her all the links that I had, and she emailed me a week later, and she was like, "It's like the dog never forgot anything." I go, "Right." It's like right like.
It's just
one
like
of the-
you have to put it in
Correct.
yourself, or
So, this tackles a couple of topics, but the training is only as good as much time as you invest.
yeah,
So, board and train, one con is that the training is tied to us.
sure,
Right? So then we transfer the training to you, which is why we have the videos and why we have the follow-up lessons, right? Because you could watch the video and maybe something doesn't translate well. It happens a lot, especially with recall. People usually they don't get they watch the video but they miss pieces. So then they'll book a follow-up and they'll go, "Hey, I struggle with recall, so I'll go show me what you're doing." And almost always they're forgetting, for example, to walk backwards because that helps the dog target you. I'm like, "Oh, that's part of the problem," you know. And then there might be some handling skills with the leash and stuff. So the follow-ups are there to help balance out the video in case something didn't translate well or we're forgetting something, and then you just continue. What keeps the obedience functional is that you use it every day regularly.
yeah,
It's not train the dog 6 months later without practicing. Hey, do the thing that I taught you 6 months ago. You know, if you're using your heel every day, if you're using your recall every day, and this is once a day. If you use everything once a day, sit, down, place, stay, up, heel, it remains functional. And then one day in the future, you're at the park, she's playing with the dog, maybe that dog strays from the group and she follows that dog and you need her to recall, she's gonna recall because you've been doing it every day at least once a day.
yeah,
Does that make sense?
yeah.
As opposed to, oh, it's been 3 months and you've not practiced recall. I really hope she comes today.
No, I mean, we plan to walk her twice a day, and
Perfect.
we just started walking her because she just got fully vaxxed, and her vet was like very skeptical about taking her out in the summer.
Sure.
But
Typically, it's fine. What you
Yeah.
want to do is you want to avoid walking her near areas that are heavily dog populated.
yeah,
Okay, so if there's like a park where all the owners go to like let the dogs run around and play, you want to avoid that because one of those dogs could poop and have giardia or pee or something, and then if she gets close to it or eats it or something, then she gets the
For sure.
disease, whatever. But if you're just walking around the sidewalk and you keep her away from like picking up stuff off the grass and stuff, then typically it's not a problem.
cool.
So,
So
but yeah, that
with walking, our last other dog passed away. We used to walk the dog we have now and that dog on a co-lead. Is that something that we can train?
that dog had, I'm sorry, had what?
We walked our old dogs on a co-lead.
Cold.
It's just like it was
one
like a
leash.
leash that connected to two leashes,
Oh, sure.
you know, so they like walked through, like,
So the only
is that like just practice from based on, or,
the issue with that would be if the senior dog is allowed to just kind of walk however,
yeah,
and then you want her to heel, right? So she would be told to be strict, and if the other dog's walking loosely, it's gonna incentivize her to want to walk loosely, if that makes sense.
yeah, yeah,
So heel is very strict. Heel is walk with me, stay with me, sit when I stop, right shoulder, dog's right shoulder, parallel to left leg. Okay, and then we give them a 1 foot bubble. So as long as they're within that 1 foot bubble, that right shoulder's in that 1 foot bubble, we're within the space of heel, right? But if you say heel and you're walking and then she decides to come up front with the other dog and then you allow it, that then undoes
yeah,
the concept of heel because that's a different style of walking. Now, if you walk her without any commands and you just put the double leash on, but no command is given, that's completely fine. The only thing that works against you is if you give a command, she doesn't do it, or she does something else, and then there's no reinforcement. That's what undoes the training.
yeah, okay,
Okay, so like a lot of clients, when they teach the heel, they'll come back and sometimes the dog will be up here, okay? And I'll tell them that's passing. They're like, yeah, but the dog's not pulling me, right? And this is so much better because my dog used to drag me down the street. Like, well, I understand that. But heel isn't this little gray area. Heel is super strict. So I was like, if you keep practicing the way you are, you're undoing all the training that you just did now, because now
Yeah.
the dog's learning a new thing, if that makes sense. So the only thing that matters is we're very careful about not giving a command and then allowing her to break it. Okay? So if you go for a walk and like, you know what, we're not going to do heel today, we're just going to go on a casual walk and use our double leash, nobody cares, because no command was given. So she's technically not doing anything wrong.
So it might be better to like walk her with our other dog, Joni, and then take her out by herself to work on her commands
Yeah, yeah.
once a day or something like that, if we're going to walk them both.
Yeah, because Joni only needs one walk a day now.
Yeah, she's old.
Yeah, it's like my
But-
kid's 15, so I get it.
But she'll need a couple, you know.
Yeah, yeah, she'll need the most walks, for sure, you know.
Okay.
But even if you do one walk with the both of them, that's, you know, loose, but then her second walk, let's say it's a half an hour walk and you make it a structured walk, you're good. Okay?
Thanks.
Because, chewing on something?
No.
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 Yeah, you got to watch her. She will.
I know, it's puppies. At this stage too, she's probably getting close to teething, if she's not teething already.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're
They're slowly falling out.
Yeah. Do you give her anything to chew on?
We have
Yeah.
a lot of chew toys.
got some nylon bones and
Excellent.
yeah.
Does that answer your questions?
Yeah, for that,
Okay.
it
Do
did.
you have other questions?
Do you have any questions right now?
I mean, is barking part of the training? Like to
So-
not bark? Because
Yes.
she's not currently barking at really anything outside the house. She's just barking to play,
Yes.
but it's like obsessive barking
To the other dog?
at our elderly dog who
Okay.
can't jump around and play with her,
Yeah.
right? She just kind of,
Yeah. So correcting behavior is easy once you understand how to do it. So jumping, demand barking, which is what that is, right?
yeah,
Chewing on furniture, like anything that you don't want her to do, the human sees it as like this is 10 different things.
Yeah.
But consequences, one consequence can address all 10 different things, if that makes sense, right? So like, let's say your other dog didn't like that she was barking at me, just a little nipple bite, right? And so don't bark at me. Let's say she tried to mount your older dog, same thing. Don't try to mount me, right? Or she tries to jump on them, don't jump on me. Okay, so it's really showing you, oh, this is how you correct the dog correctly, because you can correct the dog and do it incorrectly. That typically the dogs don't understand it. You know, like I have a client that I just did a consult with, and she's like, well, I spanked my dog, but the problem doesn't go away. I'm like, because dogs don't spank each other. I was like, you know, I get what you're doing, and you're on the right track because it's a negative consequence, right? I was like, but your dog doesn't care about it because it's not something that they really understand. You have to correct them in the way they understand. Once we get that down, it's like, oh, okay, she's counter surfing. We already know how to correct it, right? Oh, she's barking out the window. We know how to correct it. It's once you understand it, it's just you correct anything you don't want. Okay.
Got it.
Other questions?
if our older dog is doing behaviors that we don't want Viggo doing, is letting those go gonna hurt Viggo's training?
Only way it won't hurt the training. The only
Okay.
thing it can create is like a little bit of I don't call it confusion, but like, let's say the older dog's barking out the window, right?
Yeah.
Might be incentivized to also want to bark out the window, right?
Sure.
As a follower. So you can still correct, but then you'll probably have to continuously overlook her if the other dog's allowed to bark, because it's like a constant temptation, so to speak.
Yeah.
You know.
So that's probably the only, I would say that's Joni's only bad behavior, is
It's
barking.
not really like super bad either.
Yeah, it's just when literally, it's very rare. But
Sure.
so we just probably need to start correcting Joni
Yes.
and then keep correcting Viggo.
Yes. If
Okay.
everybody's on the same page, that's where obviously you get harmony.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Like today, you know, Mondays are typically slower, but we have like 35 dogs here. But you
Right.
wouldn't know it.
Right now?
Yeah, they're all behind that wall right there.
Oh,
If
cool.
you look up on the TV here, on the top right, like we have dogs doing plays, we have dogs on treadmill, we have a play group. It's on you can't see it, but it's by where the mop up bucket is.
Oh, I
off
see.
camera. Yeah, yeah. So like, and then the kind of room is right there too. And you might hear the occasional bark, you know, if a dog hears something or whatever.
Yeah.
But like when we have the dogs play here, they're only allowed to play to a 4 in terms of intensity. Because then if anything becomes 5 or more, that's where scuffles tend to happen.
Yeah.
You know, but since we keep the play groups controlled, they're playing, you know, they're like nipping and pulling on each other and stuff. They're rolling around, but it's like quietly.
Yeah.
So, but in order to have that, it's because of consistency of like in the beginning, way, 5 years ago when I first opened my brick and mortar, we started with one dog, addressed anything we didn't like. Then I got my second dog, addressed anything we didn't like, and it just grew from there. As opposed to just wanting 50 dogs because I need money and then trying to come back retroactively and teach them all not to bark. And it's easier if you start with one and then you work your way up, which is what I did. It's like a lot of places, maybe you heard across the street, depending on the time of day, you'll come and it's just like barking. If I try to go over there and stop the barking, I can get it done. It's just going to be a lot more work. So,
For sure.
yeah. And in a lot of cases, if you address the leader, the other dog will follow. So I have a client right now that has 2 dogs. One of them, if they're in the yard, their fence is like off of a park, and sometimes dogs will run off leash. So their bigger dog will run to the fence and start barking, and then their other dog will bark and follow. So they're asking about, well, how do we stop them? Like, well, you'll need to correct Winston, the bigger dog, because he's the one leading the situation. Once you correct him, Ernie will most likely follow. And if he doesn't follow, he's a lot easier to correct. This lady is super early. A lot easier to correct. I do very early. So I have another client right now. Yeah. We're all in the same space. Yeah. Do you mind if you would stay inside here?
No.
No. Oh. No?
So you have to start.
Okay, Viggo.
All right, so this is the barking that you see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here.
You think it's because of the harness?
So see how she keeps focusing?
Yeah.
So I'm going to try to break the tension here. There we go. Good.
So is it better to walk her on a leash like that? Like,
No. So what I did here is I configured it like a slip leash.
yeah.
Slip leash takes a lot of technical skill. If you don't use the slip leash correctly, you risk choking out the dog.
Sure.
But this gives me a lot more leverage, and now I'm able to break the focus, because if I try to do the harness, it's going to keep tension here. There we go. Right? So I'm just trying to break her attention to the dog, so we don't get hyperfixation. Good. Good. Now, this isn't stuff that I necessarily teach my clients. This is more so, I would say, yes, familiar with Cesar Milan, the dog whisperer?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So when I first started training 15 years ago, I trained using Cesar Milan methodology. I studied him, or I watched this TV show and stuff. And I was celebrity. I rewatched and watched his TV shows like 3 times. I would rewind. That's how I learned in the beginning. And then I went off and did a formal 3-month internship where I learned e-collar, prong collar, and all that stuff. But in the beginning, I was very much just self-taught. So what I'm doing here is Cesar Milan methodology. The reason why I don't teach it anymore is it's very, very difficult to teach people how to be like Cesar Milan. Okay, because he's very good about energy, body language. He's very good with the leash. Cesar Milan methodology is why I can have 35 dogs here and it'd be quiet. This is built off of his methodology. Exercise, discipline, perfection, right? So here, one of his favorite tools is a slip leash. That's why I did it this way. And I continuously just kind of put a little bit of pressure on her, telling her you're not allowed to do that. And now she's giving me the relaxation that I'm looking for.
Yeah.
If this dog moves, yep, and then decides to get her attention, I simply just reinforce, and then she's gonna go back to laying down. There we go. But I haven't told her anything. Like, I'm not using obedience here because it's not about obedience, right? Behavior is you're not going to do the barking on the leash like you want to. Okay.
Okay.
Question on the ad stuff.
No. You got anything? Go ahead.
So one of the most common questions we get is when does the e-collar go away? In my book, when you need it, it doesn't. Okay, so it means if she's going to be off leash at the park, you need it, you have the collar on. It doesn't mean that you're necessarily pressing the button all the time.
So that's for the e-collar?
Correct. Because you're wanting off leash, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you familiar with what e-collar is?
I've looked it up and looked on your website and Googled
Okay.
that
Have you
particular.
ever been to a chiropractic or physical therapist?
Yeah.
You have? Have you ever had TENS therapy? The machine that moves your muscles?
I have.
You have?
That's
an e-collar.
pulsing.
Yeah. So that's an e-collar. It's just a muscle stimulator. A lot of people think of it as like electrocution or like electric shock or something like that.
Yeah.
A lot of that comes from in the dog training world. There's a lot of drama. There's trainers that use positive only, and there's trainers like myself that use everything that we have available, like remote collar, prong collar, food, and all that stuff, right? But they use words like shock, torture, pain, electrocution to deter people from hiring trainers that use these tools. Okay, when you actually read into e-collars, and professional grade e-collars, not like super cheap ones you find off on Amazon for $50, those you don't want. It's just the same as miniaturized TENS unit. Okay, it's a muscle stimulator. So if you were to put it on your hand and press the button, your thumb might move because it's stimulating the muscle that then moves your thumb. Okay, just like for you, I'm sure they put it and then they move the muscles for a bit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And the way that we use the e-collar for training is very much the same as we use the e-collar as they do the TENS unit, where they probably started low, and then they turned it up, and they said, "Tell us when it's too much."
Yeah.
Right? And you're like, "Oh, that's too much." They drop it down a little bit, and you go, "Okay, I can deal with that." Right? It's the same thing for the dog. We start low, we work our way up until we find a number that she responds well to, but that she also respects. Okay. The biggest issue with remote collar training that I see very commonly is what's called low-level e-collar training. Low-level e-collar training is when you're at like levels like 5 out of 100. Okay, you're at a ridiculously low level that it's very hard for the average dog owner to replicate what is done in a training class out in the real world. Okay, because in the real world, you have other dogs, you have stimuli, you have people, you have sounds, you have scents, right? You have all these things, and 5 may not be enough to override all those things. So what I do is I am as low as possible, but as high as needed, and I help you figure all this stuff out, right? So if we're like at the park, if we're doing one-on-one, if we're at the park, and it's a lot of distractions going on, we start at 15 because that's where most dogs tend to feel it. 15 to 20, to 25 to 30 to 35, right? And let's say at 35, she finally starts doing the thing we want her to do, okay? And then she's doing very well, right? We train 20 minutes, very well at 35. But then maybe an off-leash dog runs right past us. And she's like, whoa, right? 35 might not work anymore because something very distracting just happened. So that number might go higher in that moment. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And if you're in a very calm, passive environment, her number could be 15, 20. It just depends on the context, okay? And this is all stuff that I talk about. This is all stuff, you know, even in the boarded trains that I cover, I explain it in the video. But if we're doing an in-person program where you're learning everything yourself, like I'm teaching you all this stuff real time,
Yeah.
okay? Question on any of that?
No.
So the reason why it doesn't go away, so to speak, because everybody asks like, well, when does a dog learn to be a good dog? Okay, that's the most, I hear it all the time. When is a dog going to learn to be a good dog, right? That's not a thing, okay? What happens is sometimes you luck out and you just get a good dog.
Yeah.
And then you get another dog, and it can be the same breed. I've even had dogs from the same breeder, right? And then the owner's like, these dogs are completely different. I never had a dog like this one before, right? I had a guy, he had 10 labs his whole life, and then he got his 11th lab. And his 11th lab was like off its rocker. It was crazy, right? He just had a lot of drive.
Yeah.
And he's like, I've been getting my dogs from the same guy for the past 50 years. And then I got this dog. I go, what's that? Because the breeder bred for family pet, but he took working line dogs. And what a lot of times the family pet breeders, they start off as a working line, but then the washouts are then bred, right?
Yeah.
So you're breeding out that drive over the course of time. But every now and then you get a puppy and it trickles down from great-great-grandpa, right? That you get a working line dog. And that's what happened to this guy.
Yeah.
I've had that happen with clients too, with like German Shepherds. Had another client with Malinois, same thing. Was supposed to be a family pet Malinois, which to me that's kind of contradictory because Malinois are known for being crazy, and having a working line dog. So, does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, and we totally adopted her knowing she's a working dog.
Sure. And all this means is, does she have to herd dog or sheep? No. If you want to, there's a place up in Wisconsin not too far away. I can direct you to. But structure, technically speaking, the obedience is a means of working. If you walk her for 30 minutes and she has to be here to you, right shoulder parallel left leg, that takes a lot of focus and discipline, right? That is the work.
Yeah.
And then when you walk a dog in a structured fashion, it can double to triple work because of the mental. A lot of times people, we walk our dogs like this and it's just doing whatever, whenever, however, right? And then they get home and the dog still has energy. I'm like,
Yeah.
right, because there was no, yes, physically you were doing stuff, but also if the dog's constantly just like going from thing to thing, you're now reinforcing overstimulation. And you're also reinforcing, I want to do something, I do it. I want to do something, I do it. I want to do something, I do it. So then when you get home, the dog's like, I want to do something. And the owner's like, we just walked you, right?
Yeah.
So that's where structure comes into play. Okay, and I teach all that stuff too. So it's a balance of obedience, but then at the same time, how do we take what we've taught our dog and apply it in our lives that it provides structure to also help meet her needs.
Yeah.
Okay?
I do a lot of backpacking, which is why I wanted her too, so she could like come with me eventually when she's old enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
You
you
know?
do like the weighted backpacks for dogs.
Yeah, a couple pounds maybe.
Rule of thumb is a third of their body weight.
Yeah.
So if she's 60 pounds, the most that she could wear would be 20 pounds.
Yeah.
So, okay. The other thing is, are you familiar with opportunistic behavior?
No.
Do you drive?
Yeah.
You go on the expressway?
Yeah.
Yes.
You go the speed limit?
No.
For the most part.
You see a squad car, what happens?
Slow down.
You
Slow down.
You pass a squad car, it's clear. What happens?
You speed up.
You speed. That's opportunistic behavior. So think of your e-collar, think of your prong collar as a cop on the collar, right? When it's present, consequences here, I'm gonna behave better, right? But then once you remove it, oh, that thing is gone, right? So like, let's say you're at the park and maybe you forgot to bring it, right? And she's playing with another dog. Come. Do I have to? What do you do? Can you make me? Right? Opportunistic behavior. So it's nothing about like my skills as a trainer or anything like that. It's just animal instinct. If you can get away with something, then like why not?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
at the park or whatever backpacking, they definitely need to
Correct.
wear it all the time.
Exactly. And the goal is when you have it, you're not always doing this. You're not always pressing the button.
No. Yeah.
It's there in case something happens, right? If I get a client that's still pressing the button, they're in what I call, they're stuck in management mode, right? And the answer is always because they're too low in the collar, okay? So every dog's number is different. I can't tell you what this dog's number would be. I figure it out all through the training.
Sure.
I had, coincidentally, a couple of German Shepherds that I trained from two different owners, right? One of them was like 25-30 on the e-collar. The other one was like 65-70.
Oh.
So it goes from 1 to 100, the e-collar that you use?
127.
Okay.
They're releasing a new model. The model that I use, they're discontinuing it. And the new model, I think, only has 100. But traditionally, all the collars have had 127. Okay. And then there's different output levels, low, medium, high. So like a low output would be for like a 15-pound dog, a 20-pound dog. A high output would be for like a 70-pound dog and over.
Yeah.
Right. And then medium would be for in the middle. And there's outliers too, but the three most common would be those three. Okay. Is it all making sense?
Yeah.
Questions on any of that stuff?
No.
The other thing is, like when I got my pit, Lexi, she's 15 now. I've had her since she was 3 months. The first 2 years of her life, because she was right at the start of my career, was all training. Because she was my experiment dog. I did clicker training with her, I did slip chain with her, I did prong collar with her, and then I graduated e-collar with her, right? So her first 2 years of life, we're training all day, every day. Plus, at the time, I worked at a pet store, so I could take her to work with me. So I had a leash that went around my waist and it clipped her. So as I was like stocking shelves, she'd be just sitting there and I would, you know, reward her at the end and then, okay, let's go to this part, right? So she got a lot of training. And now, if I were to have her off collar, she'd probably be around 80% reliable.
Yeah.
Okay, which is still pretty good. But even for me, as a person who's dedicated 2 years in training my dog, there's still a discrepancy in terms of when that collar was off. Like she knows, like, okay, like I don't have to be right on it, you know. But I know, like, if I'm going to be in an environment where I know, like, I need 100% from you, then that collar is on. Okay, and I can walk my dogs beside me, no e-collar, because I have good handling skills. So then, how I use the leash is what allows me to walk them in a heel without having the e-collar. Okay. And that's all stuff most people aren't going to dedicate the time to learn those skills.
Sure.
Okay. Do you have a question?
Not about that, but like for the board and train,
Yep.
you know, if they like, do they like forget you or like, I mean,
No, you'll come back and she'll be all wiggly and jumpy and all that stuff. Yeah.
even if it's like the 3-week one or whatever,
Correct.
like they usually,
Yeah, I'll forget you.
cool. So they're usually pretty
And
chill.
you're welcome. If you want to come by and, you know, visit your dog, you're welcome to do that.
Cool.
A lot of places, I don't know why. In the past, I've heard that it disrupts the training. I think it's BS. I just think they don't do it. So like service dogs, for example, a lot of times are only trained in positive only, which is part of the reason why you can't mess with a service dog, right? Because if they're only trained on food and if someone comes over to give them affection and they become really excited, there's no way to rein them back in again, right? But with remote collar, we don't have that problem. You know, if a dog, for whatever reason, broke out of command or whatever, we have a means now to reinforce to limit the consequence. So I think it's partially because of that, is if that place only does food-based training or methods that aren't as reliable, then if you come in to a degree, you can disrupt the trainer because there's no way to rein the dog back in again. Whereas for us, like, it's no problem. If you want to come visit your dog, come visit your dog. Just let us know so that we can schedule it, so we can have your dog ready for you. And if you want to take your dog for a walk or something, you're welcome to. We owe it, but I just note to clients that until you've had your first classroom, until you've begun implementing the training, expect your dog to behave the same.
Yeah.
Okay. Because they go like, oh, I told my dog to heel, they didn't heel. I'm like, great, but your dog's in the middle of a training program and you've not done anything with the dog yet.
Yeah.
So, okay, that's all standard. Once you pick up the dog and you begin implementing what you learned, you're going to see the training kick in right away. Okay?
Cool.
Other questions?
How far do you book out, or how far are you booked out for like either the one-on-one classes or the
We have
board and
space right
train?
now. This is a weird summer, assuming because of economy, people aren't even buying as much retail. Like I would say, watching because I own my business, I have to like watch sales and what's doing good, what's not doing good. And it's interesting to see just a lot of stuff just kind of teetering off right now. So there's space both for the in-person and for the later.
So we could definitely book when she's after when she's 6 months.
And if you'd like to book ahead of time, it's just if you're doing either program, it's just half down, so you can pick your spot.
Yeah.
Right, and then the rest, the remaining balance is due when the program is about to start. Okay.
Yeah.
So everything's paid for before we get started.
Heard.
Right.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Other questions?
She's a digger. Is that something we can address?
Technically speaking, yes. Now, is she left unattended?
She'll do it when we're out in the yard with
Okay.
her.
So that's easier because we can correct.
Yeah.
Right. Again, it's just understanding how to correct. But the issue is if you ever leave a dog unattended, especially a younger dog like this, sooner or later they will find something to do.
Yeah.
Right. So you'll see the digging come back. Yes, you can correct the dog when you're not present with the remote collar, right? And to help the dog learn, you don't have to be in the vicinity in order for the consequence to happen. Okay. The problem is if your dog is left for 4 hours outside, it gets boring. They're most likely gonna revisit the thing again, right? If you're keeping an eye on your dog, then yes, you can still continue to correct. That's not a big deal. But that's why that stuff happens. Is if the authority is not here, the collar might be present, but if it's been like 3 hours, the dog's like, I'm bored, I want to dig again. Okay, but if you're present, that's a little bit easier. Okay. Other questions?
So because of her age, you either recommend the 9 or 12 week in person or the 3-week board and train?
And you can do a longer board and train, but the 3 weeks the minimum because the first week's going to be prong only. And then if you're wanting off-leash reliability, the first week or the second week, so her first week's going to be prong collar, second week's going to be e-collar. So it's like the same stuff, but now we transfer to the e-collar. The third week is then we transfer the obedience to the long leash to start building towards off-leash.
Okay.
Okay. So then you see how to do it, and then you start going through the exercises, right? And then you can use your follow-ups for to either again anything that didn't translate correctly, and or if it's like, hey, this is where we're at, and I'm like, hey, this looks really good. What are the next steps? And then I can help you with that too.
And how many follow-ups do you get for the 3 week?
3 week, I believe you're at 5.
Okay.
Yeah. So the 1 week is 1, and then the 2 week is 3, or 3 weeks 5. Yeah. Okay.
Cool. And what would she get like all the advanced skills at 3 week, or would it be more like just like the heel and the recall?
Sit, stay down, come place, heel. So
Okay.
6 commands, yeah. And then they're all going to be transferred except for place. I don't do places going to the dog bed on long leash because realistically speaking, you're not bringing a bed with you right at the park. Instead, if you needed your dog to sit still for a bit, you'd use your down command because that doesn't require an object.
Right.
So every command but place is transferred to the long leash to begin off leash. Now, the longer we have a dog, then they get closer to off leash. It's like I just had a pit that finished a 4 week daycare and train. And so first week for that dog, because it was an older dog, was e-collar on short leash. Second week is obedience to long leash. Third week is obedience long leash in a group of dogs for distraction. Fourth week is completely off leash in the group of dogs. Okay.
Yeah.
Now the dog leaves here with that skill set, but I have to then transfer it to the owner. So like I'm going to see him tomorrow to have his first class because his dog wrapped up this Saturday, right? Because it's like buying a car that has like all these fancy things, but if you don't read the manual, you don't know what it does, right? So same thing for the dog. You can get to off leash even with the 3 week program. It's just there's going to be some work on your part, right? You have to close that remaining gap. Whereas in his case, the dog left here already able to be off leash, but I have to catch him up to the training now so he knows how to use it correctly.
You mean like heel off leash?
Heel, stay, sit, down, come, all off leash.
Because otherwise it's like an opportunistic for them.
Well, it's
kind of.
There's stages we have to go through before for them to learn heel is heel, leash or no leash. Okay, so if we have a dog on a short leash always, right? Let's say you walk her every day, and then one day you decide she's been perfect, let me take the leash off. There's probably going to be some screw ups there because she's going, hey, that leash isn't here anymore. What happens if I try to run away? Okay, because she's thinking, if this isn't here to keep me next to you, what can you do?
Yeah.
Which is why we transfer the obedience to the long leash, because then the dog goes, hey, there's no leash here. It's just they don't see it. We use a 30-foot leash. Okay, so then the dog a lot of times will try to run away, and then we correct them and we work them through it, and they learn like, oh, heel means heel, even if I think there's no leash. And then we have to go to the other stages until they're finally fully reliable. Opportunistic behavior only applies when the collar is not on and you're trying to use your obedience, right? Because she's like, oh, you told me to come, but I don't feel that thing here.
Sure.
So what happens if I don't today? That would be opportunistic. Okay.
Okay.
So the 3 week is what I recommend for puppies as a minimum because they're younger.
Yeah.
If you want her to be fully off leash when she leaves, then it's a longer board and train program.
Yeah.
But if you do a 3 week and with your 5 follow-ups, like I'll get you to off leash. Okay, you'll just have to do part of the work.
Sure.
Okay.
And it'll probably be quicker than doing the 12 week
In
person, but we wouldn't learn how to also correct behaviors like dig and.
So you could use a follow-up for that. So and obviously in the board and train, if she's not, there's nowhere to dig here, right?
Yeah.
You can't correct those things. But it's very easy for me to show you how to correct those things. Okay. And then once you understand how to correct, it's like, oh, okay, I can correct everything I don't want.
You can apply it to almost everything.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that's one thing about remote collars. It's fairly straightforward. It's just once once you understand how dogs work and how they think and how consequence works, and when you give consequence in a way that they understand, like it's a very quick learning curve, which is why a lot of my programs are shorter than most other places, and why a lot of my clients don't come back from our training because it was done in the first go. Unless they come back going, hey, I want to learn more stuff, more advanced stuff, right? If they come in going, all I need is heel and recall, I'm like, all right, it's going to be this amount of time, this much. And as long as they do their homework, we're going to get there. Okay. Other questions?
No, not yet.
Do you have any questions?
No, because I'm currently concerned about the digging, the chewing on our furniture, the
Yeah. All the puppy stuff.
Yeah,
the puppy
we
stuff.
got her at a time where we're gonna need a new couch anyways, but she's already like hitting the corners and stuff, and
Gotcha.
but you know that's what we signed up for.
Gotcha.
Let's see. No, I guess that's it. I mean we definitely want to do one of the programs. We just have to like decide on like the money, like you know figure out
Sure.
like which
And then
one,
Tina can
which
send
one's
you-
best for us.
Tina can send you the rates and stuff. They're all on the website. But
Yeah,
Tina
is
has-
it updated on your website?
Yes.
All right, cool.
The other thing that you could do is like, for example, I got a client, I trained their first corgi and he passed, and they're coming back with their puppy quarterly. And same thing, I told them come back when the puppy's 6 months, then we can do, you know, it'll be more, you'll get more from your investment, right?
Yeah.
So they're leaving out of town, and I asked them, like, do you have any other trips where you're going to be leaving? And they're like, well, we have 2 more. I'm like, all right, well, what I would do is 3 weeks, because that's the dog's 6 months. And I said, you can split it up week by week, where the dog comes the first week, right? And then when your other trip comes, you do your second week. When your other trip comes, you do your third week. Now, in that case, it's split up, so it's not going to be as straightforward progress, obviously. But that's also another thing that we do. The minimum requirement is that we do at least a week at a time. So like I had another client, they did a 3-week board and train. They did the first 2 weeks, and then they came back like 6 months later to finish the 1 week because they knew they had another trip coming up.
Okay.
So instead of having to do like a boarding stay or whatever, they just split it up. But to get the 3-week cost up front, you pay up front for 3 weeks.
Sure.
And then you split it up as you want it.
Got it.
Okay, because if you try to do it 2 weeks and then 1 week, you're paying for those respective program costs.
It'd be
which is
more.
expensive. Exactly. Okay.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. Yeah.
And with the in-persons, it's once a week for an hour. At this time of the year, I'm usually at Oz Park on the weekends. I used to do it every day before, but now because I have more responsibilities here, if it needs to be during the week, training is here. But if you want to be outside at the park, then it's Saturday and Sunday I'm at Oz Park. So we're training in a busy, distracting environment.
Okay.
The only time is like if I'm not over there is like if it's raining or something, and it floods over there too. So then if it's raining, then we just relocate here for that particular weekend. Otherwise, we try to train out there.
And would we like set a time and it's like every week the same time that works for all of us, you know, or something? Cool.
And if you need to reschedule whatever, you know, just let Tina know, and she'll, if you're going out of town, whatever, she can just adjust the calendar. If you need to do a different day during the week, if I'm available, then she'll put you at a different day. So,
Okay.
okay.
And can we both go, or should
Yeah.
it just be one? Can our kid
If we're doing in
come?
person, anybody that would be a part of the dog's training is encouraged to come.
Cool.
I always focus on the 2 primary handlers, right? So there's other family members, whoever that will be a part of it, they're welcome to come. And then if I have time for them, I'll try to squeeze them in, but I always try to focus on the 2 main people first.
Yeah,
Okay.
that would be us.
Where are you guys located?
Hermosa. So Pulaski and Fullerton.
Oh, okay, yeah, you're not too far away. Yeah. So you're still within the city.
Yeah.
If you need it in-home for whatever reason, there's just a $50 upcharge because I have to leave where I'm at to go to you. Okay.
Yeah.
So like, let's say, whatever program you go with, and you decide, and you're like, hey, we really want to correct these behaviors in the home, right? That would be like an in-home lesson. So then I can go like, what is she doing here, and then show you how to address the behaviors
Nice.
in your home setting.
And that would just be per lesson if we were like, hey, let's do
So
one
you're welcome
lesson.
to do all of them if you like. If you want to do an in-home, in-person, but it would just be per class. Okay. Otherwise, most people meet me at Oz Park. They'll do their trainings there, and then they'll save, you know, the in-homes for like when they really need the class. So a lot of times it's like when guests come over because the dogs are being territorial or they're too excited, or like, you know, if they're like digging, stuff like that, then I go, sure, then we can schedule the in-home for that. Okay.
Cool. All right.
Potty training. She is not reliably potty trained yet.
Okay. In either
Do you have
program, I
any-
can help you with that.
Okay.
With the board and train, it's harder to potty train. because the potty training has to be done in your setting.
Sure.
Okay, but I will provide you with what we can do here is get her on the schedule, because that's the core part of potty training is crate training and then getting the dog on the schedule. So we can get a foundation here. Then you just have to translate that to your home.
You
setting.
could coach us on how to do that.
Correct. Now, if you do it in person, I can still help you with the potty training. What I do is I send you, paperwork, just like stuff to read or whatever, and then we can maybe have a Zoom or something where it's like, hey, this is how I do potty training or whatever. Because it's really how do you do it, right? There's no purpose, there's no benefit to me coming to your home and paying an extra $50 to show you how to potty train there, because it's not going to be done in the class. It's a lot of just information, and then you take that information and you utilize it. Okay. But yeah, potty training's not a problem.
Okay. Yeah, because we have her on a pretty good like morning, evening schedule. She doesn't during the day. She's pretty fine.
She's getting better. She's like,
It's like she gets playing, and then all of a sudden she'll just stop and pee on the rug.
Oh yeah, that's very common.
Like super excited and then just pee.
When you clean it, is it clear or dark yellow?
It's an orange rug, so it's hard to tell.
yeah.
So the reason why I ask is if it's clear, then it's usually overhydration, drinking too much water.
Okay.
She drinks a ton of water.
Yeah.
It's usually yellow, I think. I feel like.
Yeah.
If it's yellow, then she's just being what she needs to. The other thing would be when you let her out to go potty. Like for puppies, I'll watch their screen, and then you'll see where it's clear, and then it becomes light yellow, and then it becomes dark yellow. When you see the dark yellow, that's the end of the bladder. Because a lot of times, people take the dog out, the dog will pee, but they didn't fully empty their bladder, and then they come inside, and the puppy, pees inside. Like, yeah, that's because we didn't fully empty. Okay. Do you utilize a crate?
Yeah, she sleeps in a crate at night.
Perfect.
And she loves it.
So the excited peeing when she's playing, if you can time like about when it happens, it's usually like 10 to 15 minutes into play. Let's say she's playing, like, it's been 10 minutes, stop her, pop her on a leash, run her out, she'll probably piddle, and you can come back in and then she'll go back.
Okay.
Nice.
That's one way to avoid it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
It's because of the activity.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like if you take her for a long walk, always before the end, let her potty again, because the walk itself will get them to have to go again.
Yeah.
So a lot of times they'll potty in the beginning, they'll go for the long walk, and they go straight inside. And then they're like, oh, the dog peed on me. Yeah, it's like, yeah, because of the long walk.
Nice.
So, okay. So once you know this stuff, it's like, oh, it makes complete sense. And now I
Yeah.
can work on the problem. Okay? But yeah, potty training's not an issue. We reinforce potty training here, but if there's anything that you need help on, we can also help with that as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay? Anything else?
That's it. I think we're good.
Okay. So Tina will send over what I recommend and the price points, whatever. For the collar, do we know how big she's going to get by chance?
Both her parents are 45 pounds.
Okay. So speaking from experience, and I hope this doesn't happen to you, blue healers, when they become reactive, are like very difficult to address. Okay. I have one right now. I was blue healer, and it took me 45 minutes before we finally stopped reactivity. Okay. I'd recommend going with a higher powered collar just in case. Okay. In case that problem happens to come about, you have the appropriate collar to address it.
So when you purchase the collar, there's 3 different choices for level, like the 60 pound and over or whatever.
Yeah. So I would put her on the 70 pound and over. It's perfectly safe to use. You just get more from less.
Got it. So we put it at like 10 or 5
Exactly. So
instead of 25 or 30.
Exactly. Numbers just much lower, so it gives us more wiggle room to play with. The other thing is, in case of emergency, like I've had clients that at the park, it's October, and then there's a firework out of nowhere, and then the dog runs away because they're scared of the firework. Right?
Yeah.
And they've been able to return their dog because of the remote collar, and part of that is having enough output to actually override the situation. Okay. Because what people don't account for is the fear. Right, and the dog's running away, and it's against instinct to run towards danger, right? So, and at least for the people who've told me about this, everybody's been able to return their dog because I always tell everybody the appropriate collar, okay? So I'm only saying that just in case, right? Because she had a little bit of reactivity earlier.
Yeah.
I know she's social and she plays with dogs, you said, right?
Yeah, we try to get her into socials and stuff. And
So socialization and leash reactivity are 2 different things.
yeah.
So your dog can be leash reactive, but often social. And theory is on a leash, they're tethered to you. They can't escape the situation. right? So in cases where the dog is scared of the other dog, they'll become reactive because they're thinking there's no escape. Whereas if they're off leash, there is escape because they can just run away, right? With
Yeah.
puppies, typically, it's frustration. It's like, I want to go play with that dog, and I'm going to start barking, and then, you know, paired with the harness, whatever, things can escalate from there. So it's more of just like a rather have it and not need it type of thing. And then if you end up needing it, not a big deal because you already have it. And it's not that much more expensive than the collar I would recommend. I think there's like maybe a $50 difference. So, okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And then if you get your collar through us, it is 10% off. Okay. So I
But
think,
it's the same price roughly, but with 10% off.
so I think it's like $340-ish all in with taxes. After the discount, it drops to like $305-ish. Okay.
Okay. Cool.
It's an investment, but these tools, I had my first collars for 10 years before I had to replace them. So they last.
How long did the battery last if like I was gonna go
It's
backpacking?
rechargeable lithium battery. So if you just have it on but you're not using it actively, you probably got about, depending on how many hours, I would say 2 to 3 days worth of charge. Okay. And then if you have like a portable charger or generator with you or something like that, you can just plug it in to charge it up.
Cool. All right.
And they're fully waterproof as well, both the transmitter and the receiver.
Nice. Okay. And both programs you would kind of help us with like reactivity and like,
If you do a board and train, and let's say you use up only 3 of your classes and you got 2 left over, you don't have to use them all. You can pocket them.
and then
Right.
use them in the future like for
Correct.
to
You know,
help
like,
us.
let's say you go backpacking and then maybe she has reactivity towards wild animals or whatever, right? Like how do we, like, I need to learn how to do that. Yeah, sure, I can show you. So the board and train, the follow-ups also cover things that the board and train itself can't cover.
Okay.
So that's the nice thing about it as well.
Okay, so we could pay you $50 and you could come to our house and like show
As
us
long
some
as we can
things.
replicate it, correct.
Yeah.
That's the best way is if we can replicate it. Okay. Otherwise, I can always explain it to you, but it's very different from like actually doing it yourself.
Sure.
So yeah, it's not a problem.
Okay, cool. I mean, it sounds good, man. Like you were recommended, so like one of the best, so
Sure. I've been doing this for 15 years.
hell yeah.
Nothing new under the sun at this point, you know? Like even with this, right? Like as soon as her, I was like, I'm not worried about it. I already know what to do. It's a puppy, this and that. And she's calmed down.
Yeah.
And this is with zero trick. This is just because I know how to use my leash. I know how to use, I don't know if you saw my hands. I was kind of,
Yeah.
the reason why I do this is kind of to mimic a dog bite, right? So to help break her attention, when she would look that way, I was just putting pressure on her. And the moment she looked away, I would relax, but it was similar to another dog biting her. So that's the Cesar Milan stuff. But like,
Yeah.
I spent a really long time
Hundreds of hours
trying
learning
to
it.
learn that skill. People aren't gonna do that.
No, for sure.
They want reliability with as little work as possible, which is what I've developed my programs after.
Yeah.
Especially now with Google, like everybody's attention span and everybody's patience is so much shorter than what it used to be, right?
100%.
So even when I do my in-persons and they come back from 1 week to the second week, they're like, I'm ready to learn more because it's working. It's very quick. It's very straightforward. You know,
Yeah.
the only times where things get difficult is because it's a behavior case, and it's like a high aggression case or a high reactivity case. Like that's different, right? But everybody else, pretty straightforward. Class to class is we're just building on top of stuff. Board and trains, transference is very high as long as the owner follows through with the training, right? So like, let's say I work with her in a board and train, and her number is 80, right? And I start low, and then I work all the way up to 80, right? Before she starts listening, and then I return the dog. The owners go, wow, I don't like 80 though. So then they're doing 40 or something.
And it's not working.
It's not working. And it's not working because the training didn't work. It's not working because they're not willing to match their dog. And the dog learns that. Okay? But I don't know. It could be 15, it could be 20, it could be 100. Every case is different.
Yeah.
And I've even had it happen with puppies too. Size, breed, age, none of that stuff matters. What matters is how do they receive the collar and are they, sensitive to it. If they're sensitive to it, it's very simple. If they're like, nah, I don't care about this, then it's a little bit harder because their numbers are higher.
Okay. Yeah.
What age do like behavioral issues like start to set in?
6 months.
6 months.
That's when they start. Yeah.
So our other healer at first was a little like protective of us.
She had food aggression.
Well, yeah, but she also like remember she bet like
What?
Grayson one time.
Oh, and he tried to get near me.
Yeah, for new people.
Oh, okay.
But they also, like, she's mellowed out completely once she got used to our friend Grayson. You know, now they're best friends.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
It's usually a trust thing, and this was in the very beginning when you had her.
yeah.
Yeah.
So she was probably, it was the first year we had her.
Yeah, because they're still acclimating. Because it takes about 2 weeks to a month for them to settle in to their human environment.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. You got anything else for us?
Nope, that's pretty much it.
All right, cool, man.
Okay.
So if you have any questions, you can ping Tina.
Okay. And
And
should I,
then just the price point and everything.
she'll send it to us? So I don't need to
Correct.
reach out?
And then if you want to expedite things, you're welcome to reach out. If you're like, hey, you know what, sign us up for X program or what have you. If you want to do in person, you can go ahead when you email her, you can send her your schedule.
Yeah.
Because that's what she's going to ask. First thing she's going to ask, right? So if you want to skip a step, that's one thing you can do. Same thing with like a board and train. If you already know what dates you have in mind, you can just send those dates right away. You can go, hey, I want the 3 week and I want, these are the dates we're looking at, just so we can split it up and we want to do 2 weeks here and a week here. It's completely fine, and then she'll just get the process rolling. Otherwise, she'll reach out to you as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, it was a pleasure meeting you.
Yeah, you too.